say welcome all. Atlantic Magazine did a study where they put together 12 very eminent scientists, chroniclers of innovation, and masterminds. And what they gave them as a tasking was, can you come upon the top 50 innovations after the wheel, of course. If anybody asked for the very first one, we'd all kind of agree in this room that it has to be the wheel. There are some interesting takeouts, and I'll just go into the top 10 just to kind of do some context setting for the discussion to ensue. Can anyone guess what was, and don't Google this out, please. I mean, that you can do at home. Can anyone guess what came out of these 12 scientists and chroniclers of innovation as the topmost innovation out of the top 50? Any guess? Quick one? Anybody? No wrong answers. Farming. Okay. You know what it was for them? The printing press. Amazing. And that is because knowledge began freely replicating and quickly assumed a life of its own. How evocative is that? Then I'll take you to the top 10. Electricity. No guessing there. Penicillin. It became the silver bullet for any number of previously dreaded diseases. 4. Semiconductor electronics. Naturally, we can accept that. Is the physical foundation of the virtual world. Optical lenses. Amazingly, for the longest time, people knew about refraction. The Romans had seen that water would refract. All of that was known. But lenses, when they came in, they opened a totally new world of microscopy and telescopy, which actually made discovery possible in the minute and in the major. Paper, which of course is understandable. The internal combustion engine, because it took air and fuel and converted into power. Number 8, vaccination. Vaccination, which was tried and poo-pooed till the government realized that, yes, you could actually make people sick to cure people. And the internet, we love that one. It still came 9th, which is the infrastructure of the future digital world that we are already living in. And lastly, their top 10 was the steam engine, which got, if you remember, bumped off by the internal combustion engine. It's come to number 10 for powering factories, trains, ships that drove the Industrial Revolution. So phew, that's a lot. Rajat, starting with you, could you share with us, being a successful startup entrepreneur, and you've done so many other things in your 18 years, can you give us a peek into your experience to begin with?
Experience
with your startup. And
okay, so let me just tell you what we do. We are basically disrupting the oldest profession. That's banking. So what happens is, what we are doing is we are removing the banks from your lending business. So the model is very simple. You have money, you give it to the bank, and when you need money, you go to the bank. And basically, takes a deposit and gives you money at 18-36% as a loan. So the bank is making all that money. And if I told you, say Rajat Gandhi was taking a loan at 20% from HDFC Bank, one of you could come and give me a loan at 15%. So you could make more money, I could save money. So it's a two-line business model, little innovative. Of course, you will be having some 20 questions in your mind. Is my money safe and those kind of things. So we step back a little bit and say that why is a bank empowered to lend money, or why is it able to lend money? Okay, what's so special about those bankers? What's so special about Mr. Puri or Chanda Kochar that they can make 30% year on year and rest of us can't? So at the heart of it is that if you see till now, when you do lending, you do it based on data. Okay, till now the data was very unstructured, opaque, and it needed institutional strength to collect it, structure it, and analyze it. Today what has happened with your credit data being available on the digital, it is available online, and there are new data sources like your Facebook, LinkedIn, which can go into your credit profiling. And that can be made available to you and me at a fraction of a cost, at a fraction of cost and real time. This is what we are doing, is we are profiling these borrowers and giving it to them, to people like you and me. And we are telling them, why don't you take a decision like a banker and make those monies?
fabulous.
So it's a fully new way of doing things. I know lots of questions will be there.
It is, as you said, the second oldest profession in this. Okay.
We are still waiting for disruptions on the first one, right?
All right.
It's
That's not
Internet, right?
That's not our discussion
There you
here.
go.
Vishal, coming to you. Could you give us a little deco about what you do?
Yeah, so Seclore is a information security company, and the premise of the product, we have one product, is that as information becomes more and more valuable and as an asset, there is a need to exercise ownership of this information. So if you consider, I mean, if you look at some of the sessions that happened earlier in the day, we all agree that information has become a very valuable asset, whether it's data, analytics, information, and so on. But today there is no way of exercising ownership of this information. So when you send any kind of information to me, what happens is a copy of that information comes to me, and the stuff that is with me is effectively mine, and whatever is with you is effectively yours. So and this is a problem in a lot of situations, because in a lot of situations you want to share information with somebody but still want to exercise control of that information, right? So you're sending let's say you're sending a proposal or a pitch document to a prospective client. Now you want to share this information, obviously, but you don't want to relinquish control of that information just in case you don't get the contract, right? Just as a very simple example. So what Seclore's underlying technology does is that it allows enterprises and people to exercise control of the information irrespective of where it goes. So for example, you could send a document to somebody, and then 3 days later, if you don't like the person, you can press a button and it will vanish from that other person's computer. And during those 3 days, you can make sure that the guy is not forwarding, or he's not printing, or he can only respond back to you and not to anybody else, and so on. Right? So this whole idea is being able to exercise control of information that is within as well as whatever is going outside of the enterprise.
Fabulous. Thank you, Vishal. So basically what we have got here are two illustrations, and there are a multitude of them, but we were happy to have you on board here to talk about the role of innovation in a startup enterprise. Luisa, could I ask you my basic question, which was like, is there a startup possible without innovation?
I think, it comes back to what is innovation. And I think that innovation, the seeds of innovation always lie in uncovering a need that hasn't been effectively fulfilled. So yes, there are opportunities for startups to find a gap in the market and fill that gap. And it doesn't necessarily mean that in filling the gap they are delivering an innovation to the market. But I think that the startups that really do capture the imagination and that take a market gap and expand on it and maybe take it into a different direction certainly use and leverage the power of innovation. And if you look at some of the great companies that exist today, they all start with truly understanding what the gap or the need or the job to be done is. Apple is a great example. If you think about Jobs introducing the iPod, it started out with understanding that people are passionate about music and they want a device that makes access to music as easy as possible. So he started with the need and understanding true human motivation, and he built an entire ecosystem around distribution, delivery, and enjoyment and experience of music around that one piece of understanding and insight.
So well said. So Rajat, do you and Vishal agree? Was this the seed that got you started? The need in the marketplace?
Yeah, that's true, because you need to identify a key pain points. You can't say, I have technology, now I'll do innovation. I think that's not it happens, because the customers don't see technology for the sake of technology, what it can do back to them. And are you really doing something faster, easier, cheaper? I think that's the key points of innovation. Otherwise, it's incremental work which you're doing.
Absolutely. So, Vishal, what is it? Is it chicken or egg? I don't know if anyone has the answer to that. So, is it chicken or egg? Similarly, is it innovation or technology? Are these face-offs? Are these concurrent? What are they?
I think innovation is pretty independent of the technology. I mean, technology is just one kind of innovation. There are lots of other ways of innovating. Some of the presentations that were done earlier is just innovation in the way of communication, which arguably is not technology. I thought, at least I learned a lot in the, a couple of sessions earlier where there were new ways of, for example, making a video from the wine, I think
backward.
Right? So there are a lot of other ways of innovation, I think that has to precede technology.
So
Innovation definitely first, and then.
So yours is
technical.
innovation first, technology next.
Yeah,
Rajat?
absolutely.
Yeah, so I think they're intertwined, as you said, because technology in the technical sense, I'm not talking about. Maybe I think wheel was also a new technological innovation.
Right.
So those quite mechanical or whatever it is. So I think you have to do some innovative stuff. You're now in an age where you're beyond the basic tools. So yeah, that's there.
Luisa, chicken or egg?
Well, I don't know. I think it's both. Because, I mean, sometimes real innovation comes out of a pivot. So you're going down one direction and some happy consequence, sort of unintended consequence suddenly drives you in a different direction, and you have something that really is an innovation. And I can give you an example. Coming back, maybe touching on our first, our oldest profession, is
Really?
is the well, there are two stories around that. The one is the pharmaceutical company who was developing a drug for angina, and it was doing okay, not great, and this little old lady came knocking on their door one day and said, you know that drug that you've been giving my husband, well, it had some unintended consequences, and thus Viagra was introduced to the market and completely changed the scope of Pfizer for many years. And I think it's just those happy unintended consequences that can lead to a spark in value proposition development, because whereas it was going, they were going down one track, the drug had one use, and it went another way. And then relating to that is also that a lot of the innovations in technology were sparked and were originated by the oldest profession in terms of online development of e-commerce, of online advertising, et cetera, et cetera. So really it is wherever there's a need, human beings will be creative enough to find a really powerful way to get
do
there.
it. Vaishakhi, what's your take?
Yeah, I was just thinking of, example from the pharma industry, but Botox was also discovered in the same way. It was actually meant for muscular dystrophy, and that's how Botox was discovered. But, there's something about innovation and technology, and whichever comes first. What is the uptake on that? I mean, Rajat, what you've come up with is like you're saying, I mean, when I want to save money, I'll go to the bank. When I want to borrow money, I'll go to the bank. And yes, I'm paying a lot of interest when I take money, but I also know there's a trust factor involved. And, like you were saying, how do I know who I'm borrowing or who I'm lending to? There is a lag in the uptake of anything new, It has to be an idea whose time has come, literally. So do you think that that lag actually pushes back on innovation or something that's really new?
I don't think so. Look,
I
every
mean, did you have that?
No, so timing is very important, and we all believe that we can time it right. But if I had known the timing, I would have done anything, whatever it is. But the thing is, you need to keep on pushing the envelope. And the biggest thing is the failure is the key to that next innovation you're going to do, and time it right. Before us, I think at least 2-3 people had attempted this same model in India. We held back for that reason. And we felt that the whole ecosystem needs to be ready from that perspective. But I do not know whether we timed it right or also not, because till the time everybody's using it, because we are a mass product. Till then, I don't think we can be called a success. So innovation, timing, but timing, trust, and they are all-time truths. You have to work on them, you have to build on them. Technology doesn't much play in that.
Vishal, what about you? I mean, how was the uptake of the idea?
I think in our case, it was a very iterative process. So that we thought that we were a little ahead of time at the time we started, about 4.5, 5 years in the business. But then one of the things that drove our product direction was that we listened and co-innovated with our customers pretty rapidly. So we had, in some cases, it's a software product, and normally software products go through release cycles, where you get a new version sometimes once in a year or once in 6 months and so on. So one of the key things for us, which kind of reduced the gap between the product and the customer requirement, and therefore if the product was a little too ahead and didn't have some of the things, was we listened to the customers, and in a lot of cases we did product releases once every week, right? So that quickly. So as long as you're or any innovation to start with becomes, goes over from a revolutionary idea to something which can evolve, or an evolutionary thing really quickly, I think then the timing thing is becomes less relevant.
And it's strange that you mentioned customers, but like, where did you go looking for your customers? I mean, this was a technology that's developed here, right? So, and obviously a lot of your customers are global. So what was the challenge there?
Not to start with. So we started obviously talking to people around in our, ecosystem, just, reaching out to, in our case, well, that might be specific, but since the company came out of the IIT Bombay incubator, there was a lot of alumni network which helped us significantly. So that's just, incidental. But into the initial validation of the technology was just done by people we knew.
And was it difficult to take it out?
In our case, the product didn't need to change significantly, but the messaging, positioning, and how we communicated to the market, that had to change very drastically. As we went from an Indian product selling to Indian companies to Indian product selling to, for example, companies in the Middle East or companies in North America. So the messaging and positioning had to change completely as we evolved.
Okay. Luisa, would you have any challenges of, products going out from one country to the global world?
Absolutely. I think there are always challenges when you're trying to globalize something that works in one market. You can never make assumptions that it's going to work everywhere, or that you have effectively converted the true value proposition in a way that it's relevant in the local market. One very good example, a great innovation from Africa, which is M-Pesa, which is the mobile money solution, which was developed in Kenya and literally it just mushroomed because of a desperate need for remittance for people in one side of the country to send money to people on the other side of the country. And it's now sort of holds and runs probably 40% of Kenya's GDP. That didn't translate directly into South Africa, which is just a couple of countries down in Africa, because of the way that it was marketed, the way it was communicated, and it's taken many years for Vodafone to really reposition the offering to make it more palatable to that market. Can I just touch on one thing that you said, which I just think is so important for us just to be aware of, is that innovation. And I teach and I lecture, so I get very passionate about this kind of thing, and I like to sort of highlight certain theoretical things. But innovation, research has shown that innovation isn't about lone genius. It's not about sitting in a room and coming up with an idea and saying eureka and there you've got it. It very much is an iterative process of build, measure, learn. Optimize, build. It's a constant process of going out, finding what the market needs, building a minimum viable product, getting it out there, getting them to play, to test, and it's exactly what you were saying with getting the feedback, incorporating that feedback into the learning loop so that you can continue to evolve and develop your product, your service in a way that it really works for the market, and so that there is a co-creation process. And that's very much what technology has enabled in today's day and age, is this ability to co-create and to co-innovate and to use input from outside of the organization to help you build something unique.
So I'll just add to that. The co-creation is not necessarily within the organization or something. Actually, the whole paradigm has shifted from you coming out with a product and giving it to the people. It's actually your consumers build the product for you. And especially if you're doing something very new, where you also know what you're doing. Because when I started writing the product, it was a blank piece of paper. I took nearly a month to even write the first paragraph. So the idea is to send the product out, let the customer start making it.
Yeah.
But that's easier said than done. It's a
tedious process.
Not a tedious. You do not know where to draw the line, what to give, and what feedback, and you can theorize it, but actually how will you do it on a tomorrow morning basis?
If wishes were horses, we'd all ride them. Rajat, would you like to take this, that innovation and technology are so interwoven, so intricately interwoven. How much of this should the technology face, should the consumer see? For example, should it be the Apple way, where it's all clean, simple, it works? Or should it be the Japanese way, all the bells and whistles thrown in, show the customer how much he's paid and what has he got in return? What's your take on this?
I think you're confusing technology with features.
Yes,
Okay,
technology
so-
which builds in features.
So you have features, you can have a strategy. At times you want to give the customer a lot of things. If the customer, at times you want to give him lots of features and let him reject it, let him feel, as you said, the Japanese model. But that's more at the marketing and the communication level. But at the end of the day, the technology needs to be simple and do the one job the right way.
Simply,
And every time the same way.
easily and
yeah.
simply.
So whether you have lots of features or 5 features or 1 feature, but it should do what it is intended for. That's the job of the technology. Rest is features and bells and whistles. You could take your strategy according to your product strategy or marketing strategy, add those features, reduce those features.
Right.
That's your call.
Vaishakhi?
Yeah, see, while we are talking technology and features, it's also like you were saying, it's iterative and the consumer decides which way you can go. And if you think of Steve Jobs, he insisted that the consumer doesn't know what he wants. So really, where do you draw the line? How did you come to, and again, I'm talking the innovation part of it, how did you realize this is what the consumer wants? Both of you actually, Vishal and
Yeah, so I think Steve Jobs is a great example of something which at that point of time was a revolutionary concept of creating the phone with the interface which was touch oriented and so on, right? Truly the first smartphone, if one can call it that. But if you look at what has happened since then, I mean, it's been 10 years since the first launch, right? That's all evolution, right? So it may start out with a fundamental insight about an unserviced need or a fundamentally different way of starting, which is kind of what happened in our case also, that establishing ownership of information that is going out. A lot of times, stuff like you're sending personal financial records to your wealth advisor or health record to your doctor, and you're kind of worried about what the other guys might do. So it may start out with an insight and something which is quote unquote more revolutionary, but there is really no option even for Apple to evolve really rapidly from thereafter. And what makes iPhone, whatever is the 7, different from iPhone 1 is probably more important than what made iPhone 1 different from the rest of the smartphones in the market. So dominance in the market can only be driven by continued iterative innovation and not fundamental insights of what happened with Steve Jobs, 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's hard to find those sparks of magic. Not to say that there are not plenty more out there to be discovered, but I think you're 100% right, and it's all about adding value. So it's all about value creation for the enterprise. So yes, a massive amount of value was created by Jobs in the development of this completely unique technology, but that doesn't undermine incremental innovation over years in terms of taking that technology and perfecting it, and how much value has been created since then. And Apple has only just been unseated as the most valuable company in the world by Google just because of that incremental innovation.
Well, I do not know how much of that is myth and reality, but I know for sure that I personally don't much believe in surveys and also going and talking to a customer and filling up a form and asking, what do you want? If that's the question, I don't think the customer knows what he wants. But if you really go deep into the way he behaves, what he does, and you do a kind of a study on that, then you will really come to know what he really wants. So there's no right answer. I'm sure Steve Jobs would have his own mechanism of finding out what you want. Yeah. Right? It may not be the formal surveys and those kind of things. And I think that's the art of this whole data and
in fact, there's a lot of sophistication in market research, which is enabled with so much of data coming back. I think we have time for 2 more pointers. In direct marketing, there's a well-established concept of strategic proportion, which is essentially telling a consumer something they always wanted to know at a latent level, but never bothered to ask. So Bluetooth, for example, did have a very arduous journey in product acceptance, which could have been accelerated if they went out and said, hey, Bluetooth is a wireless protocol. Whenever you see a device, prefer this device over that. They didn't do it, because I don't know why. So what do you think? Do you think innovation could use strategic promotion as a tool, must use, or is it irrelevant? Luisa?
Well, I just think that sometimes, and again, it comes back to the innovator's sort of situation where they might be a technology or a business model innovator, et cetera, who don't necessarily have the tools available to them around marketing and promotion. And I think that it's so important when you're creating something brand new, which the market isn't aware of, which they don't know yet that they need, to give them the full picture and explain, but explain it in a way that it really answers all the needs that they might find in their day-to-day lives. So yes, I do believe that it's a very powerful tool, and that's where we as direct marketers become a very important ally for innovators to help to explain very carefully and clearly to consumers or businesses what the value
That looks like a
proposition.
carefully orchestrated plug for the Direct Marketing Association. But then if it is, you must believe us that run to all of us if you have an innovation. Last poser. I'll start with you, Vishal. You're into my immediate. May I take your question? If you had a wish for an innovation which you think could improve your life, dramatically change it, or simply make it awesome, any thoughts, each one of you? What would it be?
Well, in my case, it's very reference to context, but something which allows long distance travel really fast. Yeah.
So, televideo, teleportation.
No, physical, in-person, long distance
Not
travel.
teleportation, not
That was my
holographic.
one. It's the Star Trek thing. You know,
Yeah,
beam me
yeah,
up,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah,
I want to
beam
be
me
from,
up. Yeah,
get from here
that's-
to there very, very
So,
fast.
Rajat, something to do
That's
with money?
Part of the reason is because I'm doing this crazy commute between San Francisco and Bombay every fortnight right now. Right,
I
so
do
that's-
Santa Cruz West and Vikoli. It's about
Sorry?
the same.
which
Much the same thing.
but time-wise it may not be very different, right? Given Bombay
I
traffic.
come home jet lagged.
There you go.
Okay, so Rajat,
Well, right now I'm living, sleeping, and eating percent. So I guess the passion is around how we can create every bank account with each other's bank account, wherein you don't need an intermediary to make interest rates or make money or save money. So it should be a dynamic flow of money. When I need money, somebody can give it to directly, and somebody else needs it, goes there, and we make money in between.
I'm going to put you in touch with one of our favorite banker friends out here, Karthi, who's from Kotak. So, Karthi, yeah, I know. So you got some lunchtime talking to do, all right?
We've got some other bankers also in the
All right, so
New India Bank. So
we'll serve you lunch in a separate room. You all can beat each other up. No problem. Okay, folks, I think in a sense, what we want to sum up is that innovation has a lag, innovation has a curve, innovation has a genesis, innovation is entirely interwoven technology, innovation needs promotion in advance of it being launched. It can hasten the curve, and so many other things that you learned. I'd like to thank our three panelists, Luisa from that side, ladies first, Rajat, who's come down from Delhi to share his views, and Vishal Gupta, who's, I think, come down from San Francisco to share his views. And thank you, Vaishakhi.
Thank you, Ramesh.
And
Thank you. It's
That's
been
me,
a
Ramesh.
pleasure.
Bye-bye. Enjoy
Thank
your
you.
lunch.
Can we have another round of applause for